Hey, so do you have an intense fear of rejection? So you're hanging out with somebody and you're overly worried about saying the wrong thing, saying something stupid. Is it going to be received? What is the other person's reaction going to be? Are they going to like or dislike you as a result of that? Okay, so if that's something you're struggling with, I want to help you understand where that intense fear of rejection is and then how to become immune to it. How to not fear rejection whatsoever so you can step into who you truly are, okay? So without further ado, let's get into this video right now. All right, so if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Rubin and I help individuals overcome social anxiety, particularly the blank mind, the racing heart, the feeling like you can't breathe, the physical symptoms, and this inability to connect with others, okay? So if that's something you're experiencing, then I encourage you to hit the subscribe button, and there's a bell notification beside that you can hit so that you're notified right away when I release a new video. And if you want to connect on a more personal level, you can follow me on Instagram, and I would love to hear from you on there. Now, right off the bat here, I really need you to understand this one point. Do not underestimate the importance of this, okay? You have zero control of the other person's feelings. You're not responsible for them, okay? And you might be resisting that and saying, well, I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be an asshole. Yeah, 100%. What you are responsible for is your own behavior, okay? You are responsible for your own behavior. The biggest thing, though, is what's the biggest determinant of your behavior is your feelings, okay? Now, think about your feelings, okay? You having social anxiety, the nervousness, the panic, the fear that comes up in those social situations, okay? Where does that come from? Okay, it comes from maybe you went through some past bullying, okay? Maybe you had some harsh parenting, parents that used to shame you. Maybe your parents went through a divorce and you felt disconnected ever since that point forward, okay? Now we talk about your parents. Where did your parents get their traumas from? Okay? And then even beyond that, maybe there's their grandparents. And then further beyond that, there's your racial group, your gender. There's so many things here that play into perfect. It's the perfect combination of factors that contribute to your feelings right in that moment when you're sitting in that one-on-one interaction or that group interaction, whatever the case may be. So think about it. All of those factors are playing into the other person's feelings and reactions, okay? So you have zero control over that, okay? So I really need you to understand you are not God. Do not try to play God. Do not try to control the other person's feelings and their reaction. It is solely their responsibility. And the more and more you try to control other people's reactions, the more attached you will be to what they are, what the outcome is. As the reaction or the facial expressions or the perceived rejection comes out, the more energetically you're going to be attached to that. And the more intense, the bigger that attachment is, the more intense your fear of rejection will be, okay? And ultimately, you're just gonna be driving yourself crazy, hitting your head against the wall, trying to control other people's reactions. You have no ability to. Okay, so really understand that. Now, there's a lot of advice out there about being externally focused, okay? And that has its place. But even if the person is completely innocent, they're coming from a good place, they don't have bad energy or anything like that, they're going to be open and receptive to you. If you have an intense amount of fear and nerves and anxiousness, it doesn't matter where they're coming from because you're going to be projecting those feelings onto that person. You're going to be perceiving them as a threat even when they aren't, okay? So your sole goal isn't to say this or say that and try to gauge what the other person's reactions are, okay? That's very controlling, okay? Your sole goal, your ultimate goal should be to raise the consciousness of the container that you're in. Raise the consciousness of the relationship between you and the other person. And context is king here, right? It's not a one size fits all. This is more for intimate conversations. Let's say you want to go and you want to have lunch with somebody, you want to go have coffee with somebody. It's a more intimate setting, and you know shit's going to get real. You're going to be talking about some real stuff. Okay, this is not about superficial water cooler talk at work. Okay, this is a different context. Know the context that you're in. Context is king. Now, going back to the raising the consciousness of the group or the space that you're in with the other person, okay? What do I mean by that? Don't be intimidated by that world. Don't think it's like woo woo or whatever. All I'm talking about is awareness, okay? Now, depending where you are in your social anxiety, I want to explain this, is you're going to be expanding your awareness, and your awareness is how you ultimately achieve. That's the single most important factor when it comes to overcoming social anxiety. So when you first experience social anxiety, what are the thoughts and feelings that you experience? Oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm completely defective. Why don't other people have this? Why are other people moving forward in life and I'm stuck with this anxiety? Oh my God, I'm just overall such a weirdo. You have this big secret that you're holding inside, okay? And then when you do a little bit of work, right? When you start working on your recovery, then what happens is you realize, oh wow, that bullying that I experienced, it's really affecting me still. Or the parenting that I had, it really impacted my life and my ability to feel safe with people, okay? And then you start, maybe your focus will go on to your parents, right? And then instead of blaming yourself, then you start blaming your parents, okay? And then when you start to learn even more about your parents' experiences and things like that, then you'll realize that was passed down to them. And then you stop blaming your parents, and then you have compassion for your parents. So ultimately you have compassion for yourself, then you have compassion for your parents, and then you have compassion for your grandparents or the culture, your ethnic group, and what they went through as a group. And you keep expanding your awareness. You start moving closer to the truth, because the truth will set you free. You stop believing in the falsehood that it's all your fault. Okay, you stop believing in the falsehood that it's all your parents' fault, and you keep moving and expanding. Okay, this is what I mean by raising your consciousness. You're doing it in this situation. You're raising your self-awareness about yourself and the situation. And the more you do that, the more in touch with reality you actually are. Okay, so completely blaming yourself and it's all your fault, that is not reality. You're not in touch with reality. You're in your head, okay? Now, I want to help you understand that as you raise your consciousness, okay, what happens is you become more emotionally mature. So for example, think about it this way. When you look back at who you were as a teenager, you can look back and not come from that blaming place, but just seeing that teenager, yourself as a teenager, had a certain level of thinking, a certain level of wisdom, a certain level of operating, a certain level of tools that he had to navigate life. And for that, you can be forgiving, you can have compassion for that teenage aspect of you, okay? Or who you were as a teenager, okay? But when you start developing the right tools for social anxiety recovery, is you can expedite that process. And when you can really unlock your social anxiety, you can look back at who you were 3 months ago. So for example, in Trigger Free, we have people who've been living with social anxiety. They could be 40 years old. They've been living with social anxiety for 25 years. And they come into the program, they don't know what's wrong with them. Oh my God, I'm just this defective person. I'm so weird, I can't connect with people. 3 months later, when they're free from it, they can look back not only to who they were as a teenager, but who they were just 3 months ago. Look back to the person 3 months ago, have that compassion, have that forgiveness towards who they were 3 months ago. This person here 3 months ago just didn't have the tools, didn't have the awareness. So you can completely expedite how much you can mature as a person in a certain period of time. And you know this, we all know people who are 40, 50 years old, 60, 70 years old. I know people who are 80 years old who operate at the level of a child. They operate at the level of a 7-year-old, okay? Just because you age externally and physically doesn't mean you age spiritually and emotionally. And if you need help with this expanding of your awareness and expediting that inner emotional and spiritual maturity internally, then I encourage you to book a call with me. I'll put a link below the video and there'll be a link up top here. Make sure you book that call and then you can learn more about how you can work with me to really put this social anxiety behind you. All right, and so let's get back to raising the consciousness, not within the space within yourself, but within the space you're in with another person, okay? Within a social interaction, okay? Now, how did we do that previously? Remember, we talked about it. The fastest way to raise your consciousness is to tell the truth to yourself or to another human being, okay? And previously, what did we do? We told the truth to ourselves. We started blaming ourselves. We told ourselves the truth and we started moving closer and closer to it. We got more in touch with reality, okay? Except in this case, when you're with another person, you want to start telling the truth, sharing your internal thoughts and feelings to the other person so that they can become more aware of the different thoughts and feelings that you're having internally as you share that space, as you share that interaction, as you share that conversation and that discussion together. So remember, the ultimate goal, your goal is to raise the consciousness, expand the awareness of you and the other person, okay? How do you do that? Remember, by telling the truth. Now, I want to give you an example here. I was working with my personal trainer. This is a few years ago, and I remember when I first met him, okay? We went in did the assessment and we got into like, okay, why aren't you working out consistently? Why aren't you eating healthy consistently? And I told him, so I shared with him, I was like, I've had this emotional eating problem, okay? And I eat emotionally and I got all these past traumas that were causing me to eat emotionally. And his reaction was, oh, geez, okay, and at that point, when I saw his reaction and the fact that he couldn't really handle that, then I started to essentially judge this guy for being superficial, okay? Me personally, I consider myself a recovering bro, right? So I thought this guy was like all about his workouts. All he wants to talk about is how much he squatted and how many reps he did. Those were all the conversations, and I thought that was just the depth of this guy, okay? And whenever he would talk about family and these things, different things, he would only talk about these positive things, and he put together this perfect picture. And so I thought, this was a judgment on my part, but I just thought, okay, whatever. This guy's had this pretty put together life. He has no depth to him. That was my current understanding. That was my current awareness of him, okay? But then when we started doing these personal training sessions, one day he was going off about his sister. His sister, he was saying, is an addict, and he was super judgmental. Addicts are this and addicts are like that. And at that point, I had, like 8 years away from my addiction. I had no feelings about it. I had no shame about it. And in my head, I was like, man, this guy's pretty judgmental. But you know what? I'm going to share this out. I'm going to share it out. And then I just said, I was like, yeah, I had battles with addictions too. And in that moment, because I just told the truth about the thoughts and feelings that I was experiencing, okay, staying away from the judgment that this guy's superficial, I shared it outward, and his reaction was like this. He goes, I'm struggling with a porn addiction. I'm struggling with a porn addiction. I don't know what I did. I blew up my marriage. I have a baby on the way. And that was one of the things we were connecting with because we both had kids on the way. And you could see the stress. You could see that the judgment was more frustration. You could see the release of the feelings and the thoughts and everything that he was carrying. You could see the vulnerability come through, okay? Now, do you see what I mean here, okay? Because he shared that out. I shared first. That encouraged him, that made him feel safe, that he could share vulnerably as well. And now look at the emotional maturity of the container, of the space between us. Look at the level of consciousness. Okay, because now I go from judging this guy as a superficial bro to the next time I have a session with him to being asked to asking him not how's life, man, but how's life, man? Like, how are things going? How's, addiction, the relationship with the wife, the baby on the way? Are you feeling okay about that? Okay, look at the emotional maturity that comes when you tell the truth first to yourself. You come to terms with it, and then you can share it out to other people. Okay, and so this is what I mean by becoming immune to rejection, because I came to terms with the truth of my experience long before that. And because I owned it and I'm completely comfortable with it, I can be vulnerable about it. And by being openly vulnerable about it, I become invulnerable. I don't fear the rejection, okay? So I hope that makes sense. And so I encourage you to not always wait for the other person to feel comfortable. You can lead. Okay, you can become a leader in this sense and create these spaces and these good interactions where you feel super connected to other people. You can lead the way. Okay, and if you feel you want to share something and you're so scared to share it out, okay, and you got this thing you want to share out and there's too much fear, then take baby steps. Just share out that there's so much fear, okay? If you are interacting with somebody, let's say you got people over and you're having this dinner and you're sitting there in your head and you don't feel connected and you feel so nervous, you got to share out that you're feeling nervous. Don't put the cart before the horse and jump into being conversational and talking about this topic and that and being super socially confident, okay? Take baby steps. Talk about the nervousness itself. I'm feeling completely nervous, okay? And let's say you don't want to share that out because you feel so defective and guilty for having those feelings. Then share the guilt. Share that you're feeling, I feel so guilty for even feeling this way, okay? And then that will be acknowledged by the other person. And then you can move on to the next step. What is it that you truly want to talk about? What are the experiences that you truly want to connect with each other on? Okay, so start with yourself. Start expanding your own awareness. Start moving towards the truth within yourself, with your own space, your own psyche, your own thoughts, feelings, behaviors, okay? And then you'll be able to share that out and truly shift the spaces that you're in as a result of you being different, okay? As a result of owning your own truth, that space, you'll no longer be reactionary to it. You will be someone who can truly shift and influence that space in a big, big way, okay? So again, I encourage you to book that call with me. Again, the link, there's one below the video and there's one up here somewhere. Highly encourage you to book that call with me to see how we can tackle that anxiety together, to see how we can expand your awareness together. And thanks for watching. Here's some other videos you can check out next, and I will see you in the next video, all right?